Say the line, Bart!
Doctor Who disappointed me again.
Yay!
Well, Doctor Who's been cancelled, kinda.
See ya.
With the announcement of the cancellation of the 2026 Christmas special, as well as the stepping down of Russell T Davies and Bad Wolf as producers, the show is yet again in limbo. We have officially entered a new wilderness era, but let's hope it's with a little bit more hope than 1989. Unlike the original run of the show, Doctor Who has not been cancelled outright. Instead, the BBC has put it up for tender, meaning that production companies can pitch and bid for the right to produce the show. This is somewhat promising. It does mean that there is a future for the show. However, it's just a little bit uncertain and it probably won't be realised for a good few years yet. So I want to pretty quickly, and probably already pretty late, make this video talking through my thoughts on the update and also just talk through where I think Doctor Who should be going forward. I've already done a whole kind of retrospective on the RTD2 era within the past couple of weeks, so check that out if you haven't already. This is just my thoughts on the most recent developments. First of all, God, I just hate how much RTD loves to just lie with his whole chest. The now cancelled Christmas special was announced back in October. 2 months later, an RTD wrote a piece for Doctor Who magazine in which he teased that the script for the special would contain the words Winternox, Bafflers and Village. This contradicted a statement that Davies made to Newsbeat just 2 days later on the 6th of December, in which he said that he hadn't started working on the special yet. However, according to him, his plans for the special left BBC executives agape. In February of this year, on an episode of the Half the Picture podcast, Murray Gold revealed that he was aware of a few different versions of the scripts that depended on different outcomes happening.
I haven't heard really anything. I know that I know Russell's written, I think, multiple versions depending on certain outcomes. So that's all I really know. And I'm not sure I'm even supposed to know that.
Then we pretty much just had radio silence until the 1st of June, when RTD appeared on BBC Radio 2 to promote his new show, Tiptoe. Here, he happily reported that an announcement was just a couple of weeks away in response to a question about an announcement for the casting of the new Doctor.
Will we get an announcement about a new Doctor soon?
You will get an announcement. There's a press release lumbering through the BBC, which, as you know, is like the Jurassic period. Yeah. And 57 people have to sign off on every single word. So I promise you in about a week or 2 weeks, there'll be some sort of press release.
This interview got a lot of people quite hopeful. He didn't answer it in a way that suggested that it would be an announcement about him leaving or the special being cancelled, or that people should temper their expectations. Instead, he was beaming, and his tone generally felt like there was to be some good news on the horizon for the fandom. Flash forward to yesterday at the time of writing, and RTD has stepped down. Apparently he never even wrote the special, according to him, and for the first time in the show's history, there's not an incumbent Doctor in the role. I did double check that last one because I wasn't sure if there was a period of time between Troughton's exit and Pertwee being announced, but no, Pertwee got announced like a week or so before Part 10 of the War Games aired, so he was always the incumbent Doctor. This is the first time there hasn't been one. And look, I get that from a certain point of view, there was probably never one definitive script written. There was probably never a fully realised draft that was shooting ready. They were probably unable to align schedules, and the thing just didn't get finished. Hell, in last month's Doctor Who magazine, RTD mentioned the Christmas special in a way that suggested it was still happening, saying, "Wouldn't it be great if we got to this year's Doctor Who Christmas special and nothing had been spoiled and everything was new?" RTD likes to say a lot of stuff, but I can't help but see that there's a lot of inconsistencies here, and at least somewhere RTD has to have been lying, at least a little bit, but it does feel a little disingenuous to say that there was just never a script. Russell, what did those 3 words come from, if not a draft of some kind? And, what did Murray Gold hear word of? If the Christmas special was simply never going to be made, what was the point of announcing it or just keeping fans in the dark? It's frustrating. that the official BBC announcement doesn't include a thank you to RTD and the production team in the same way they did for previous showrunner exits feels a little odd. Maybe this is just because it's sharing space with the tender announcement, but for such a big announcement on the future of the show, it is shockingly short. That, combined with the frustratingly snarky tone of RTD's announcement, leave this whole thing with an unpleasant taste in the mouth, especially compared to the other goodbye posts from members of the production like Jane Tranter and Andy Pryor, with lines like, "You may disagree, fine. Sit in that chair and wait to be proved right. You'll wait a long time." There's a feeling of spite there. It wasn't until after the announcement was made that the Doctor will return in Christmas 2026 was removed from the show's iPlayer page. Despite the announcement rattling through the BBC for the past couple of weeks, it does all feel a little bit sudden. I don't know when this decision was made or why, but it does feel a little bit odd. But hey, Doctor Who isn't dead yet. Next year we have the CBeebies show, produced by Blue Zoo Animation. Like the main show currently, this was put up for creative bidding, with Blue Zoo, the team behind shows like The Adventures of Paddington and Number Blocks, winning the contract. Obviously, this is just a kids' show, but it honestly might be the perfect time to release something like this. If New Doctor Who is a good few years out yet, then releasing a good couple of seasons of a preschool show in the interim gives a new generation the chance to become acquainted with Doctor Who and grow to love it before the new show returns in whatever form it may take. And obviously, in the time between now and whatever refresh we do end up getting, we have the expanded universe. We have Big Finish, comics, books, all that jazz. There is always new stuff coming out, and whilst it may not always be the most accessible or the cheapest to obtain, it is there, and there is a good back catalogue to it. There's also fan works, from zines to fanfic to fan films. The Doctor Who fandom can sometimes be a really positive place, and during a New Wilderness era is when it should be at its best. And so we should look to the future of the mainline show. To start with, the future of the show is just up for tender. This just means that various production companies can come and pitch their visions of what the show should be, including logistical aspects like vague ideas of budgets. What is not necessarily being pitched at this time are new showrunners or creatives, though I'm sure some pitches will be coming through with writers in mind. What's also seemingly not currently on the table are discussions around upcoming global partners for the show. Until we have a production company in place and a clear direction for the show, I think it's fairly unlikely that we're going to get much headroom in this direction. Especially after Disney ditched it, it's kind of left the show feeling a little tarnished in the eyes of the streamers. It failed once pretty spectacularly on this service, why try it on ours? Hopefully overseas fans get to enjoy the show going forward and that something gets worked out, but for the minute, I imagine this is on the back burner. As for what I'd like to see, honestly, I'd just like to see Doctor Who evolve with the times. We are in a streaming forward age, and one without a monoculture. I don't think that Doctor Who can really afford to have its wacky, in inverted commas, filler episodes anymore. Starting the new era of the show off with Space Babies and The Devil's Cord was a mistake, and certainly wasn't putting the show's best foot forward. We just aren't in a place where you can start a season with New Earth anymore. Audiences have way more choice, and if the show isn't compelling right from the start, they aren't going to return week on week. More consistency in tone across the series, I think, is warranted. Vary the style of episodes you're making, sure, have your haunted house episodes, have your big sci-fi ones, but at its heart, the show needs to feel more cohesive. Certainly, I think the show needs to set a baseline for what it is before it starts deconstructing itself, as it did so much in the RTD2 era. If an audience doesn't have a handle on what the show even is in the first place, they're not going to return week on week if the show keeps deviating from a norm it never set up. Part of this, I think, should also come with reserializing the show. If you gave me a series of 5 two-parters, I think I'd be pretty happy with that format. We have seen the success of the arc format in shows like Andor, and I think Doctor Who feels at home in short serials. The first half of its life was lived entirely in short serials. This way you get consistent cliffhangers, a staple of Doctor Who's storytelling, and some inter-story connectivity. Some story-to-story cliffhangers also wouldn't go amiss here, I don't think, and would keep the audience engaged from week to week, provided that the stories themselves are actually good. With modern runtimes, the two-parter is about equal to the classic four-parter, and the four-parter are always the ones that I felt were best paced anyway. With 5 stories, you're reducing the amount of individual stories, sure, but hopefully in reducing the amount of set and cast needed from week to week, hopefully you're able to recoup some of those costs into gaining you those couple of extra episodes up from the Disney era. Spreading the stories out over 2 parts as well gives you the chance to let your characters just breathe and connect with each other and have some conflict. Let them feel more developed as people. People are wanting authentic character work in the stuff they watch. We come back for the characters, and not doing enough with them is going to turn people away. I do think the show needs to retain the weekly release format, and I do mean 1 episode a week. I just think it's the best way to do TV here. It keeps the conversation around the show going for a longer period of time, builds word of mouth, and allows the cliffhangers to actually play. This is how shows like Severance and Andor build the acclaim that they have, just continually be good week on week for a couple of months and build up the momentum from there. One of the bigger failings for the War Between the Land and the Sea for me was that a solid half of the cliffhangers didn't really play, because as soon as it was over, you were on to the next episode of the batch of 2 episodes that have released that day. I really don't want the same for a new season of Doctor Who. As for creatives behind the scenes of the show, I really don't want the next showrunner to be yet another white man older than 50 years old. I'm sorry, J. Michael Straczynski, I know you want a crack at it. I just think we need some fresher voices here. Hell, I don't think we even need the showrunner to be a showrunner. This role was shepherded in by RTD back in 2005 and seems like hell, and has led to some of the most rushed creative decisions behind the scenes. When a head writer is also having to be an executive in charge of the entire production and brand, there's just not enough time to get their own scripts sorted. Do you want another Battle of Ranskor Av Kolos? Because this is how you get another Battle of Ranskor Av Kolos. I can see a world in which we split apart the role a little more and let the showrunner be more of just a head writer and leave the rest of it to producers and executives. The head writer does not need to be in charge of the entire production, and the longer that the role looks like absolute hell on earth, the longer it's going to stay vacant. Creatively, I do think that the show needs to do a little bit of a soft reboot, just do an indeterminate time skip and just ignore the events of the reality war as best as possible. New Doctor, new adventures. I don't need any fanwank stuff like an 8th Doctor series or a Fugitive Doctor series. As much as I would probably like that, that's not how you start a new run of the show. I think that the show needs to feel more mature, but in a way that kids watching feel mature for watching it, if that makes sense. Especially with the CBeebies show on the horizon, I really think it's important not to forget kids here in an effort to chase the streaming market. Proper family programming can be made, it certainly used to be made, not just kid shows aimed at a millennial audience. We should be staying in the progressive space, but for the love of God, actually give your minority characters characters. Watching characters like Rose or Shirley Ann Bingham get reduced down to mere representations of their protected characteristics was incredibly frustrating. But I'm just one fan who isn't pitching, so it doesn't really matter what I say. I just hope that the pitching process goes well and that we get to see a completely new refresh of the show with new voices behind the scenes. I'd like to see people like Emma Moran write for the show, who was able to tie in sci-fi and fantastical themes, including time travel, into real character work in her show Extraordinary. I'm not looking for people who are already attached to the history of the show. I'm looking for new writers with new perspectives, with new ideas. I am disappointed that Doctor Who has landed here yet again, and after such a short period of time since the show was meant to be getting revitalized with a new era. I am disappointed that we haven't bowed out on a properly heartfelt note like the ending of Survivor or The Power of the Doctor before Tennant was added. Instead, we've ended on a moment of admitted desperation that leaves the show with a real bad taste in the mouth. Hopefully, we won't have to wait too long before Billie Piper's head hastily stuck onto Ncuti Gatwa's body isn't the last thing we've seen from Doctor Who, but we can only wait and see. For now, it's so long Doctor Who, but hopefully I'll be back soon with new videos on other things. I just wanted to get out a quick emergency broadcast discussing the update, especially considering I only just did a retrospective of a sort for the RTD2 era just a couple of weeks ago, so it only felt right. For now, I'll say have a good one.